There's a very specific kind of heartbreak that shows up during the festive season. It doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up when you're standing in the supermarket aisle, staring at food that you no longer feel like cooking, or when you stand staring at the beautiful tin of shortbread that your dad would have absolutely loved so much, and you start crying. It shows up when people ask, "So, what are you doing for Christmas this year?" It shows up when the traditions that you once held together with your bare hands, often doing all the preparations all on your own, suddenly feel meaningless or impossible. It's the moment you realize that the holidays don't feel like home anymore. For some women, this is the first Christmas after a divorce. For others, it's navigating shared custody, exclusion, or power plays with ex-partners who are suddenly very comfortable controlling the narrative. And for some, it's estrangement, the quiet, complicated kind. That's me. The kind where you're technically invited but emotionally erased. In my case, not invited at all. And for many of us, it's grief, the empty chair. The person who made the family feel safe is no longer here. If this season feels heavier than it used to, if joy feels forced, if you're quietly bracing yourself instead of actually looking forward to celebrating, you're not imagining it, you're not failing, you're meeting the truth of midlife. Hey there, it's Beryl, and welcome to the Radiant Reset. This is the podcast for midlife women who know deep down that the life they built no longer quite fits, and those who are ready for more honest conversations about confidence, relationships, healing, and what comes next. If you've found your way here, it's probably because something in you is shifting, and especially at this time of year, those shifts can feel very tender, confusing, and incredibly lonely. So today I want to talk about why the holidays can be so emotionally difficult in midlife and how to navigate this season without abandoning yourself completely. Let's talk about what's really going on. Here's something that I've noticed in my own life, in my friendships, and in the women that I work with. Midlife is when the stories we were given start to collapse. We've lived long enough now to see patterns clearly. We've outgrown the roles that we were assigned, and many of us are no longer willing to lie to ourselves just to keep the peace. The holidays are built on tradition, and tradition assumes nothing has changed, but everything has changed. Your whole nervous system has changed. Your tolerance for dysfunction has changed, and your capacity to pretend has changed. And when we try to force ourselves back into old roles, dutiful daughter, agreeable ex-wife, or the emotional glue that actually keeps the whole family together, the body often says no before the mind catches up. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I'm watching several close friends navigate divorce right now. And the holidays bring everything to the surface. Who gets to spend the precious time with the children on Christmas Day, even if the children are actually grown up? Who controls the traditions? Who gets included and who is quietly erased? What's devastating isn't just the logistics, it's the sudden shift in power. Women who carried the emotional labor of families for decades and actually built the family suddenly find themselves sidelined, negotiating access, defending their worth, being made to feel difficult for wanting fairness or kindness, having to accept that they will be on their own or with friends instead of with their family that they've actually put their whole lives into creating and building. And here's the pattern I want you to hear clearly. These holiday conflicts aren't personal failures, they're system failures. Old relationship systems weren't designed to hold women who actually stop over functioning. So when you stop smoothing things over, when you stop absorbing everyone else's discomfort, when you stop being endlessly accommodating, the system pushes back. And the holidays are where that pushback becomes painfully visible. I want to share something from my own life. My childhood family, as I knew it, now no longer exists. My dad passed away last year. He was my anchor, my safe place in our weirdly dysfunctional family, the quiet presence that made my family feel survivable. And without him, the truth became impossible to ignore. I'm the scapegoat child in my family, the one who eventually had the courage to tell the truth, not to destroy anyone, not to punish, but to survive. Writing my book, Breaking Free from the Mother Wound, forced me to name patterns I had spent a lifetime normalizing. And once you see those dynamics clearly, there's often no going back to the old roles. So this year I'm in Cape Town, this beautiful seaside town where my family lives, and yet they won't be coming over to us for Christmas lunch as usual. I won't be cooking the gammon, laying the table. I won't be overgiving. I won't be performing togetherness for a family system that no longer holds me. My husband, son, and I will most likely spend Christmas with friends, go for a swim in the sea, and do something non-traditional. My dad isn't here. At the moment, I'm sitting in the chair he used to sit in for our Christmas lunches. The structure that held us together, that I always organized on my own usually, has quietly disintegrated. And I want to say this clearly because many of you need to hear it. Some of the most self-respecting decisions you will ever make will still break your heart. Pain doesn't mean that you're wrong. Sometimes it means that you're finally being honest. Estrangement is one of the least understood forms of grief. There's no ritual for it, no public permission to mourn. Often the person who speaks the truth becomes the problem. And the holidays make this sharper because absence becomes very visible. You start questioning yourself, was I too much? Should I have stayed quiet? Should I have just tried one more year? Should I have tried a bit harder? Well, here's what I've learned, both personally and professionally. At this stage of the game, I'm now 56. When a system depends on your silence to function, your honesty will feel like betrayal. That doesn't make you cruel. It makes you incompatible with dysfunction. And for women who grew up as scapegoats, peacekeepers, or emotional managers, making everything fabulous for everybody else, the guilt can be overwhelming because choosing yourself often feels like choosing loneliness, at least at first. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't disappear because the calendar says, oh, it's now time to celebrate. It shows up in the empty chair, in the traditions that suddenly feel hollow, in the quiet moments when everyone else seems to be having a fabulous time and coping just fine. So if you've lost a parent, especially the one who made you feel safe, the holidays can feel brutal. And if you're holding it together for everyone else, but falling apart in private, I want you to hear this. You don't need to be stronger. You need to be more honest with yourself. So let's talk about what actually helps. Firstly, lower the emotional bar. This doesn't need to be a magical holiday or magical Christmas or whatever you celebrate. Aim for steady, manageable, and kind. That's enough. Then stop overgiving. Notice where you're still trying to earn belonging. Midlife is where we learn that love that has to be earned is not actually love. Then name the loss privately. Write down what you're actually grieving. the parent, the family fantasy, the role that you played to keep everyone else comfortable. Unacknowledged grief turns into bitterness, and named grief becomes wisdom. Then create one honest ritual, not a big celebration, one small true act that honors this season, a new one, not the past one. Release the fantasy that this year they'll finally understand. Letting go isn't cruelty, it's self protection. Midlife is where truth starts to matter more than belonging, where we stop contorting ourselves to fit into systems that cost us our well being. If the holidays feel quieter this year, it may be because something false has actually fallen away and something far more honest is beginning to emerge. If you're navigating this season with a tender heart, I want you to know you're not broken, you're not behind, and you're certainly not alone. You're doing something incredibly brave, choosing truth over tradition, and building a life that finally feels safe and serene. And that matters more than any perfect holiday ever could. So, if this episode spoke to you, if it put words to something that you've been feeling and carrying quietly, you don't have to walk this path alone. I've written much more about these family patterns and dynamics, the scapegoat role, and what it really takes to heal in midlife in my book, Breaking Free from the Mother Wound. You'll find the link in the description below or in the show notes when you're ready. And if you're in that phase of naming patterns and untangling yourself from what kept you stuck, my free guide, The 7 Toxic Patterns That Keep Midlife Women Stuck, goes even deeper into the behaviors and beliefs that quietly drain us and how to step out of them. You can also find me on Instagram at The Radiant Reset. I'm building a space for women who are no longer willing to shrink, perform, or stay silent just to belong. And if someone came to mind while you were listening to this, a woman navigating estrangement, divorce, grief, or complicated family dynamics at this time of year, please share this episode with her. That's how we find one another. That's how we stop feeling so alone. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel and gently tap the like button. We're going to keep having these conversations, the honest ones, the healing ones, the ones that help you to actually come back home to yourself. So thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing truth. And I'll see you next time on The Radiant Reset.